The sky was grey that Tuesday afternoon, but nothing could have prepared Clara Matthews for how much darker her world would feel in the next hour. Clara, 34, wasn't the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. She didn't wear designer labels, didn't bother with thick makeup, and preferred sneakers over heels. Her shoulder-length brown hair was pulled into a lazy ponytail, and her worn jeans and faded cardigan told a story of practicality, not prestige. But that day, she'd walked into Ashford Motors, a high-end luxury car dealership, with a determined heart and a simple dream to buy her husband a gift. It had been exactly 5 years since David, her husband, had rebuilt his life from the ashes of bankruptcy. Clara had stood by him through every sleepless night, every unpaid bill, and every meal of cheap noodles. Now, their business had finally taken off, and for the first time in years, they weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Clara wanted to surprise David with something special. He had always dreamed of owning a classic car, but he would never splurge on himself. She had seen an ad online for a restored 1966 Mustang at Ashford Motors, and after days of convincing herself she could do this on her own, she mustered up the courage and walked into the dealership. The moment she stepped through the glass doors, she felt the cold air of judgment. 2 sharply dressed salesmen looked her way, their eyes flicking over her modest outfit. One gave a dismissive smirk. The other didn't even try to hide his disapproval. "Can I help you?" the taller one asked. Already sounding bored, Clara smiled nervously. "Yes, I saw a 1966 Mustang listed online, and I was hoping to get a closer look." He looked her up and down, then leaned back with a scoff. "That one's out back, reserved for serious buyers." "I am a serious buyer," she replied, standing a little taller. "Lady, we don't do test drives for browsers who are just here to take selfies with the cars," he said, with a fake laugh, glancing at his colleague. Her cheeks flushed with shame. "I'm not here for pictures. I'm here to buy." "You know how much that car costs?" he said, voice sharp now. "More than your entire wardrobe, I'd guess." Before she could respond, the second salesman added, "We're very busy today. Maybe try a used car lot down the road." Place isn't for window shoppers. Clara's hands trembled slightly. She wasn't a confrontational woman. She'd never caused a scene. But as she stood there, frozen in the middle of polished marble floors and a showroom filled with cars she once saw only in magazines, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: humiliation. With her dignity bruised and tears threatening to spill, she turned and walked out, their laughter echoing behind her like nails on a chalkboard. That night, she didn't tell David what happened. She said she'd just gone out to run errands, but something inside her had cracked, not just because of the way they treated her, but because of how small and invisible they had made her feel. She stayed quiet, but David noticed the sadness in her eyes. He always did. The next morning, Clara woke to the sound of engines outside. A deep, elegant purr, unlike anything she'd heard before. She pulled back the curtain and gasped. A sleek, black Rolls Royce Phantom had pulled up in front of their modest home, gleaming under the morning sun. The driver stepped out, wearing a pristine uniform and white gloves, and walked up to the door with purpose. David, already dressed in his usual tailored navy suit, looked at the car, then at the driver. "Ah, right on time," he said casually. Clara's mouth dropped. "Wait, what's going on?" David smiled and kissed her forehead. "I had a delivery to make." Before she could ask another question, the driver handed her an envelope. Inside was a handwritten note in David's familiar scrawl: "To the woman who stood by me when I had nothing. To the heart that never gave up, you are more precious than anything I own. Yesterday, you were treated like less than who you are. Today, I want them to see exactly who you are." Clara blinked back tears, confused but touched. David took her hand. "We're going back to Ashford Motors," he said gently. "And this time, they'll treat you the way you deserve." The drive was surreal. Every head turned as the Rolls Royce glided down the street, like royalty returning to reclaim a throne. When they pulled up outside the dealership, the same 2 salesmen were out front, sipping coffee and laughing, until they saw the car. One of them nearly dropped his cup. The chauffeur stepped out, walked over to Clara's side, and opened the door with respectful grace. She stepped out slowly, not with arrogance, but with quiet strength. Her clothes were the same. Her hair was still in a ponytail, but everything about her was different. The taller salesman scrambled forward, pasting on a nervous smile. "Good morning, ma'am. Welcome to Ashford Motors. Is there anything I can help you with?" Clara met his eyes. Calm, unafraid. "I believe we met yesterday. You told me I didn't belong here." The man's face paled. David stepped forward now. "You see, my wife came here to surprise me with a gift. She didn't tell you who she was because she didn't think she needed to." He paused, his tone turning sharper. "You judged her by her clothes, by her shoes, not by her spirit. That was your mistake." The dealership manager had come out now, drawn by the commotion. He stammered apologies, but David cut him off. "Don't worry, we're not here to cause trouble. In fact, we'd still like to buy the Mustang, but only under one condition." He turned to Clara, smiling. "She's the only one you speak to." The rest of the interaction was a complete reversal of the day before. Clara led the conversation. The salesmen stumbled over themselves to answer her questions. Her confidence returned in waves. She negotiated the price like a seasoned businesswoman and signed the papers with a quiet, proud smile. As they left the dealership, keys in hand, Clara looked at David, overwhelmed. "I didn't do this to embarrass them," she whispered. "I know," he said. "You did this to remind yourself of who you are." The story spread like wildfire. Within days, someone who'd witnessed the scene had posted it online, and soon, thousands were sharing it. A simple woman, a Rolls Royce, and a lesson in respect trended for a week. Emails of apology poured in. The dealership issued a public statement and retrained their entire staff. But that wasn't the important part. The important part was that Clara, quiet, loyal, unassuming Clara, had found something far more valuable than a car. She found her voice, and in doing so, she reminded the world that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness, and humility never for insignificance. Because sometimes, the most powerful people walk softly. And sometimes, the richest souls wear worn-out shoes. Moral of the story: never judge someone by what they wear, how they speak, or how they look. True worth is invisible to the eye, and immeasurable by price tags. Kindness, loyalty, and quiet strength are the rarest treasures, and no luxury dealership in the world can afford them.